Hi everybody. I just want to reiterate what Toby said. Thank you for joining me this evening. And hopefully you'll enjoy the talk. Got some exciting stuff to share with you guys tonight. So as Toby already said, I'm Tasha. I'm one of the biodiversity officers with the forest. I'm part of the biodiversity team. So I just wanted to start the talk this evening, just a bit of a roundup of who the charity is and what we do, just for some of you that might be new and haven't heard of us before. So as our name suggests, we are located in the heart of England, and that means that we are in Worcestershire and Warwickshire. So hopefully a map will have come up for you. We have 4 areas in the forest currently, as you can see on the picture, and Gorcott is within the Spurnal area of the forest, which is just this north bit up the top here. Hopefully you can see my mouse just up here with the Spurnal area of the forest. So as I said, it's split into 4 sections currently, but the hope is that eventually those will join together to become a contiguous forest. We want to reverse centuries of woodland decline and create and conserve a magnificent 30,000 acre broadleaf forest. Currently, we're on our way to that journey. We have around 7,000 acres, 4,000 of which is new woodland, and 600 is mature and ancient woodland. So we are actually considered the largest new broadleaf forest in the country, which is pretty exciting. So far we have planted around 2 million trees, but it's not about just sticking trees into the ground. It's about making sure the right trees in the right place. So when we get new land, we will have a look, consider what needs to be going where. So if it's a bit wet, maybe we'll put willows and alders, or maybe we'll look at a piece of land and think, oh, actually, that could be something else, maybe some wetland. And that's where it's important to know that a forest is more than just trees. So it is a mosaic of habitats, helping to boost diversity for plants, animals, and people. Our land at Gorcott is a prime example of how a mosaic of habitats can merge together. So I'll just go on to show you hopefully some pictures. So in this slide, I've just put together a few of the habitats that we have at Gorcott Hill Wood. And as you can see, it's not just all trees. So on the left here, we've got a nice big piece of grassland here. We actually have 3 grassland compartments. We also have some mature trees, which you can see here in the middle. That's my favourite tree in the wood there. And then to the side here, you can see more of a mosaic in one photo. So within this picture, we've got a nice small pond here in the middle, and then we've got a large glade. But it also, as you can see around the back half and here with this hazel, there is a nice mid layer leading on to then some older trees, these mostly birch woodland over the back. But it's not just about the trees, as I said before. So we have some wetland habitats at Gorcott. So there are a few streams and ditches. This one in the middle that hopefully you can see has recently filled with water, and it runs between 2 of our grassland compartments. And then this image on the side here is another view of our grassland compartments from the other side. So, pardon me, here you should be able to see that there's a slight difference in the way the grass looks to the other compartment that I showed you earlier. So with some botanical surveys, hopefully we can find out what the diversity is and see what's different in the different areas. And then finally, in terms of the mosaic of habitats, there's this nice aerial picture here where we can see our largest pond, which is this big circle one here. And then there's like an open glade flush here, which is nice and wet. And then across the back along this border, you can see some more mature trees and then some younger stands there in the middle. So that image shows nicely how a mosaic of habitats joins together to create one larger habitat. So a bit of history about Gorcott. So this image shows you the extent of the woodland. So it's quite a nice size, nice shape. You can see it's quite large. So historically, this was actually 3 woodlands, and from historic data, we've learned that it had 3 names. So this first section on the left here was called Conduit Coppice. This middle section down here was called Ladies' Lay. and this one over the far back over here was round coppice. So these were in existence around 1810, were previously known as middlewood and bottomwood in around 1883. However, Ladies Lay, this middle section, this is a secondary woodland, and this became a woodland, we believe, somewhere between 1883 and 1903. So it's got quite a nice history, this site. As you can see from the image, there's quite a number of larger, more veteran trees around the outsides. And you can just about see down the bottom here, there's a boundary ditch. So this is even more of an indicator to suggest that these were ancient woodland sites, as this was used in medieval times to mark boundaries. So moving on to a few of the key habitats that we've got within Gorcott Wood. This is not a full list, obviously there's lots of different areas, but this is just 3 that I'm going to focus on for the talk. So we have a good number of ponds within the woodland, 8 within the actual woodland itself, and 1 temporary pond within one of the grassland areas. So these ponds, they all vary, which is good to have a variation between the way your ponds are, because you want to encourage different types of invertebrates and they all want different conditions. So as you can see from this one, it's quite shaded, the light's quite dappled, you can just see a little bit of sun coming through, it's got a cover of duckweed. So this is what we'd call a shaded pond, which will benefit some invertebrates, but it will deter others. Moving on to the next pond, this one is our second largest pond. This is a nice aerial view of it, and you can see sort of the surrounding habitat. So we've got this nice open section to the corner here, but you can also see from this picture that it is being encroached by trees. So this is something we would want to look at within the management of this pond to ensure that it doesn't get outshaded, and that it's getting some sunlight, as this is a nice open pond. We don't want it to become overly dark. So the last couple of ponds I want to show you are this combination of 2 ponds here. So this is right on the boundary of the woodland. As you can see from the picture, the one on the left is becoming to get a bit choked with bulrush. So again, this is something that we would want to look at managing on a rotation, because we don't want that pond to dry out. It's a valuable habitat, so we want to manage that correctly. And then this one down the bottom is horseshoe shaped one. You can just see the bulrush is starting to take hold there, and it's starting to get a little bit of shading from trees. So we'd have a look at the scrub management around the outside of that pond as well. So this is another nice aerial photo. This shows our 3 areas of grassland. So this is our largest field here, and then we have a smaller one just over the back, and then this one right at the back is just cut off at the end there with the road. And just this little clump of trees is where I was talking about, that there's the temporary pond within the grassland, so that's located in there. It currently is holding water, however the previous visits I've been in, it's been empty, so it's nice to see it with a bit of water in and see what shape it's going to form. So with the grassland, there's a nice potential here for some botanical surveys, because you can see from the image that there's a difference, although this has recently been cut in this image, but you can see that there is a difference in the composition. So it'd be interesting to get in there and have a look. So I've just put this image in because I wanted to highlight how not all habitats are what you would imagine. So this is actually on the track that's between the grassland. And as you can see, the bindweed here is thriving. This particular stretch, when we were doing butterfly surveys on the site during the summer, was where we had our most of our records. So it just highlights how lots of different habitats are important and how they work together. A lot of the butterflies were feeding on the flowers that were actually growing through the track. So that was quite an interesting one. And then I just want to touch on the glades and the rides that we have within the woodland. So these have recently been cut, as you can see here, from this shorter grass. This is quite a nice image because you can see the sort of composition and the layers. So here you've got the nice short track grass here that's forming that part of our circular ride that goes around the site. But you can also see that we have gorse here as well, and a nice young oak tree and some more mature birch trees coming up. And then obviously we've got this understory layer here as well with the bracken and bramble and other things there too. So in terms of how we can improve these habitats, it's based on just having a look, seeing what the situation is. So with this one, maybe we would open it up, remove some overhanging branches, bring in some more light, and just look at how we can improve that for wildlife. So moving on to this next section of the ride, you can see that it looks a lot more open. It's looking a lot better. So on the right hand side here, this is where the ride actually goes. And on the left hand side on this bit here is more of a glade that's starting to form. So to further manage this, we could look at maybe removing a couple of these birch trees and opening it up and creating a really nice habitat for butterflies and bees, and the ground flora would thrive with more light. And then finally, I just want to show you this glade. So you can see here how much brighter and lighter this is. And there's a variation in the habitats within this. You've got some microhabitats, you've got some small areas of short grass here, you've got some pendulous sedge here, and you can just about see that there were foxgloves growing here as well, which is nice for our pollinators. So unfortunately, although bracken is a valuable habitat in itself, it is starting to take over this glade here. So that would be something that we would need to consider looking at reducing, just to improve the quality and to give other ground flora the chance to thrive. So going on to the species. So as this is a new site for us, we don't have a large number of records, but of the ones we do have, they're quite nice, quite interesting. So we've done a season of butterfly surveys and dragonfly surveys at the site this year. And from that, we found species such as silver-washed fritillary, small copper, peacock butterflies, all sorts, and mostly a lot of the common ones, but it's exciting that we've got the silver-washed there. So that's something that we'll look at managing habitat for as well. From the dragonfly surveys, we found species such as southern hawker, the emperor, common darter. We found a few different damselfly species, such as the azure and common blues. We also recorded beautiful demoiselle there, which is an absolutely stunning creature if you ever get to see one. And then moving on to the birds that we've recorded there. So just from a few visits myself, I've seen species such as peregrine falcon, sparrowhawk, kestrels, buzzards. We've recorded great spotted woodpecker, tree creepers, ravens. Nice groups of long-tailed tits use the area as well. So it's really good for birds. So it'll be exciting to see more of what we get there as the years progress. Bats, so we've not had any direct records of bats at the site, but what we have had is local records that are from nearby locations, and those were of brown long-eared bats, common pipistrelles and nocturals. So looking at the woodland, when I've been walking around, there's a lot of potential for bats there. There's a lot of features within the trees for roosting. So I'm really excited to get in there and see what other bats we've got, because I'm sure we've got much more than just 3 species knocking around in that woodland. Mammals, again, we don't have many records for. So we know that there's roe deer, muntjac, badger, and I found a rabbit warren recently as well. So we've got those 4 confirmed. So again, it would be exciting to see what other mammals, maybe small mammals or mustelids we've got going on in there as well. In terms of amphibians and reptiles, again, we haven't got much in previous records. As you see in this top picture, I photographed some nice frog spawn. We've also previously had environmental DNA done on the site, where we've taken samples from the water to see if there's great crested newts on site, and we've found out that we do, so that's exciting as well. Flora, the ground flora is pretty fantastic at Gorcott Hill as well. So just to name a few of the species that we've seen, we've got bluebells, wood sorrel, enchanters, nightshade. Now these are all ancient woodland indicator species, so again further enforcing that this is a pretty special site. Common spotted orchids has been recorded there in a single instance, so it'll be really exciting to see if we get any other orchid species coming up as the years progress and as we manage the site. And then finally, I just want to mention this lovely specimen here. So this is gorse. So this is indicating that we've got a bit of an acidic soil, so that's quite interesting as well. This is a species that, I don't know if anyone's ever smelt it. I personally think it smells a bit like a pina colada, but that's my thoughts on it. Yeah, so that's a really nice addition. It's great for our pollinators. It is something that we will keep an eye on because we don't want it to spread too thoroughly, as it can take over a bit. And then finally, I just want to mention the fungi. So this woodland is phenomenal for fungi. There's just a couple of pictures that I've took here that I've popped in. It's got some amethyst deceivers and scarlet elf cup, but I have seen so many species there, so many that I have no idea what they are. So really, really excited to get stuck in to find out what those are, have a bit of an evening with my books and find out. So moving on to surveys, I've touched on it a little bit about what we've already done at the site. So we have undertaken butterfly surveys and dragonfly surveys. And also we've had an external contractor come in and do botanical assessments. So we've got a bit of a good list of what flora species we do have in the different areas of the woodland and grassland. But what do we plan to do? So we're planning to do pretty much everything you can think of. We want to know what's there, what's thriving, and how we can help it. So we're planning to do bee surveys, bat surveys, reptile amphibian surveys, fungi, invertebrate bird surveys, all of the things. So this is really important to keep a monitor and a track of what we've got in the woodland site, because it will help to inform how we manage the site, especially if we've got any specialist species that need particular conditions. We'll be able to factor that in with our management techniques. Right, so moving on to hopes for the future. So previously this site has been a bit undermanaged before we got our hands on it. So there's quite a lot to be done to improve this site for wildlife. So one of the things we're going to be doing is looking at getting some grazing on the grasslands. This helps improve the diversity of species that can grow there. This will probably be with either cows or sheep, so that's pretty exciting as well. We'll be looking at reprofiling ponds. So that's a bit of a scary word, I know, but mostly that is going to be looking at those smaller ponds and how we can open them up or how we can improve them if we want to keep them as a shaded pond. But this large pond at the bottom picture here, this is our biggest pond. This one requires a bit more TLC. So currently it doesn't have a lot of value for wildlife. It's very steep sided. It doesn't have much fluctuation in beneath the water level itself, no shelves or ledges or anything like that. It's just straight sided and deep. So we need to have a look at how we can improve that, and that will probably be bringing these banks down to make it shallower and reducing the height of this island so that nesting birds can use it, and just having a better look at how this could be better for wildlife. So that's the main goal with that one. Another thing that's going to be quite important is the removal of invasive species. So currently there is quite a large stand of rhododendron, which, as I'm sure most of you already know, is not great to have in your woodland, as it does take over and it does stop other things growing up from beneath it. So we'll be having a look at removing that and controlling it on a rotational process so that we don't drastically change the composition of the wood. And then, as I've already touched on, it'll be creating some woodland rides and some glades to bring in more habitat for our butterflies and bees and other pollinator and invertebrate species. And then again, it'll be the survey. So we want to monitor the work we've done to know if we're making a difference and how we're making a difference, what species are coming in, what we're finding, what's new, what's exciting. And then finally, one of the other big hopes for the future is to remove rubbish. So as I said, this site has previously not been managed in the way a woodland would normally be, and there is a lot of strange things like tree houses and just plastic rubbish that we want to get out and improve that woodland for everybody that uses it. So that's not just the wildlife, but that's also the people too. So how can you get involved? Moving on to volunteering. So volunteering opportunities will enable out-of-work adults, young people, and both young people and adults with special educational needs and disabilities to get involved with the work at Gorcott, giving them opportunities to build some confidence, to do some team building activities, to learn new skills, and just to get them out and about and enjoying fresh air. So the opportunities I'm currently going to be offering at Gorcott will be Friday sessions. So those will be morning and afternoon sessions. And then also monthly Saturday sessions, again, morning and afternoon. But these will be geared more to young people, sort of aged 18 to 25. And then what kind of activities can you expect if you come to volunteer with me at Gorcott? So that's going to be things like habitat creation, habitat management, the surveys that I previously mentioned. In this image here, you can see this, we've got 2 volunteers out with us here, and you can see the beautiful bluebells that are out. And we're just on a butterfly survey, and this is part of our transit route up through the woodland, and you can just see it's an absolutely stunning sight. So if you are interested in signing up for volunteering, there's a link just at the bottom here. I'll give you a couple of minutes if you want to jot that down, and I can post it in the chat afterwards, or you can just visit us at the website and there's a volunteering tab there that you can follow. So I'll just give you a couple of seconds, then I'll move on to the next slide. So dates for your diary. So this is what we've got planned at Gorcott for the next couple of months. So I will be running a walk and talk on the 17th of November, which is where you can just book on, come along, see the site. We can talk about the things that are there, have a look for some fungi, have a look for anything really. You never know what you're going to see when you go to Gorcott. It is absolutely beautiful. And then these are the first 3 Friday volunteering sessions that I've got set up. So the first one will be focusing on some pond management, and then the following 2 will potentially be ponds, or it might be some rhododendron control. It's all going to depend really on the weather and the conditions as we get closer to the dates. And just at the bottom there, I just want to point that out. It's a nice roe deer footprint there, so if anyone wants to have a look at that. And that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, as Toby said, please pop them in the chat, and thank you for listening.
Tasha, thank you so much. I don't know how that compared to Nerves with You as your debut on Radio 1 last week, Superstar, with your colleagues. So thank you for taking the time to put this together, and it's been great, and I've enjoyed it, and I hope everyone else has too. We hope to see you again at another Heart of England Forest, either virtual event, or we've got some face-to-face events. Check out the events page on the website. Also, of course, the volunteering page if you want to get hands-on with all the exciting things we're doing. So thank you, everybody. Have a good evening, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us.